October 17th, 2024. This hybrid meeting is being held in person here in council chambers and electronically in accordance with section 238, subsection 3.3 of the Municipal Act and section 16.6.24 of the City of Woodstock Procedure Bylaw. This meeting is being live streamed to the city's YouTube channel, and a recording will be posted on the city's website following the meeting. An agenda of the meeting can be found on the Agendas, Meetings, and Minutes page of the city's website. And tonight, there's nobody attending virtually that I'm aware of. We had no closed session. Are there any disclosures of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Any disclosures of new business? Matters arising from the minutes? None? Then the minutes. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lauder, that the minutes of the regular meeting of Woodstock City Council held on October 3rd, 2024 be adopted.
Thank you. Questions or concerns? Seeing none. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up, we have additions to the agenda. Councillor Tate.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Schadenberg, that the following items be added to the agenda. Delegation item 8A, application for zone change 18 and 20 Delatre Street. Delegation item 8B, application for official plan amendment and zone change 570 Walter Street.
Thank you. Any questions or opposition to that? Seeing none. All those in favor? That is carried. None opposed. No presentations, but of course we do have some delegations, and I'll just remind the two delegations that it's 5 minutes each, and then we'll follow up with some questions if council has any. So we'll start off with Megan Wright. Welcome to the front. ZN 8-24-20 concerning application for zone change 18 and 20 Delatre Street. Welcome.
I'm a little nervous that you're all here. Okay. Okay, Mayor Accioni, councillors, neighbors, hello friends, everybody. I'm here to speak on behalf of Delatre Street. We do not want a 7-unit replacing the already poorly managed 3-unit home at 18 Delatre. Over the last 3 years, I have lived directly across the street. If memory serves, I believe this new property management will actually be the 3rd in 3 years. So this is not a property management problem. I've heard yelling, screaming that is clearly domestic verbal abuse, loud music all hours, loud machinery, along with cars up and down the driveway. I understand that there are claims that many of these issues are caused by mental health or addiction issues. Myself, being someone that works as a manager in residential care services, I acknowledge that poor and abusive behavior should never be used as a synonym for addiction or mental health. I've seen open drug dealing, homeless people with shopping carts, as there was an encampment behind the garage structure. The foot and vehicle traffic is still relentless. Usually the garbage and recycling left on the front yard, tagged or not, bags ripped open, often by rats, also relentless. I've never seen this property maintained. If it wasn't someone that lived there, it's never been maintained. I was able to enter one of the apartments. It was the worst active living space I have ever seen. There was mold, a non-functioning bathroom, rats, cockroaches. I believe that the property standards at 18 and 21 Delatre should be assessed immediately. The individuals requesting 18 Delatre be rezoned and built into a 7-unit structure have not been honest on their application, as they rent out 6-unit spaces on their property, not 3. And I know this because I'm very, very chatty with my neighbors, very chatty. Currently on our block, there's a 41-unit building at Dundas and Delatre at La Residence. There's also a 40+ unit at Delatre and Hunter. That is the old schoolhouse. Okay, I'm just trying to paint the picture here. There's also a 4-plex at 42 Delatre. My home, which is 21 Delatre, is also zoned as a duplex. So this is roughly 90 apartments on this one single block of Delatre Street. And there's like 11 houses on the street, but there's like 90 apartment units. Allowing the zoning change and the construction of these 7 units by individuals who have already shown they lack the competence, due diligence required to manage or own any apartment unit would be a catastrophic addition to the density of our block. We really love our beautiful Delatre Street. We really do love it, guys. This application also did not address the displacement of the current tenants. If this will be affordable housing, if a percentage of the units will be geared to income, or if these current tenants will be offered a unit at a comparable price point. This block of Delatre Street is asking that this proposed zoning change is denied and all further applications be denied for this property, this owner, and this property management. Or at the very least, deferred until the residents on this block of Delatre have been shown by the management company and the owners that they have earned the privilege, earned it by showing us every single day that they've earned the privilege to build more units on our street. That's all.
Okay, thank you for that. Any questions of Ms. Wright? Counselor Tate?
Through the chair, and thank you for that. And I will say your street, I mean, Audrey Lightbody used to win the Beautiful City Awards all the time. Lovely. I know the former owner that used to look after that building, and I think it was somewhat clean at that time. And I'm aware of the garages in the back that he also rented out. So it wasn't just the tenants, just for council's information. It's always been more tenants than just what's in that building. So just for the public's benefit and the rest of council, that's a narrow street. So how would you describe the parking on that street? Like, say if somebody was turning on to Dundas to try to get down that street, if you've got parking, it's extremely difficult because it's very narrow, is it not?
Yes, it is very narrow.
So
Yes.
yeah, so when you add another 7 locations, one address, you're gonna have an issue.
Yes, and there's also the badminton club on the corner, and when they have events, often there's overflow, and it's completely packed. Yes.
So I was just, glad to see you come forward because there's a lot of beautiful homes there that have
Mhm.
always looked after them.
I know, we love our street, yes.
Thank you. Counselor Wismer Van Meer?
Through the chair to the delegation, thank you very much for being here tonight. You may not know the answer to this question, so if you don't, I apologize. But the tenants that are potentially going to be displaced because of renovations or rebuilding, do you know if they were aware of this happening to them prior to the planning meeting this week? Or is this something that they were aware of? Did they know that this was something that could potentially happen?
There's 3 of you are sitting right there, and I believe that you were not made aware of this previously to the sign going up. Okay. So there's no communication.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. Well, thank you very much for your presentation
Thank you.
and for coming Tuesday night, of course, and speaking then. No resolution is required as this refers to consideration of planning reports, which is a little bit later on at 9B. So next up, we have OP 24-09-8 and ZN 8-24-17 for 570 Walter Street. Welcome, Dennis and Amar.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and ladies and gentlemen, we're here to speak once more about 570 Walter Street. some questions were raised about parking capability on the site. We've worked with this site for a fairly long length of time and have come up with what we feel is the best scenario for that site. We're dealing with an existing building, so there are some limitations. You can't always take everything the way you want it, but we feel comfortable that what we are proposing is a good project and good planning. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Questions of the delegations? Councillor Leathermore.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, thank you to the delegations. I was just curious about the woman that came on Tuesday that was your tenant. Just wondering if there was any update of things being resolved and if she has proper information about this planning application.
She has been given, she was asking for details about the design, and so she's been given that. And, I spoke with her personally after that and explained to her that we're gonna go by the book and we'll work with them to accommodate whatever they want to come back after that, or whatever it takes to make them satisfied.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, I'll just say thank you. I know that came from me to start with anyways on Tuesday evening about looking at more parking. So I appreciate at least looking at it and considering it and going back and seeing what you can do. So thank you both for being here tonight.
Thank you. very
Okay,
much.
and
Thank
same
you.
idea. No resolution is required as this refers to consideration of planning reports, item 9C. So thank you.
Thank you.
So next, we'll get into consideration of planning reports. We're going to start with B 24-50-8 and A 24-15-8. Mr. Miller, welcome.
Good evening, council, staff, members of the public. As the mayor mentioned, application B 2450 and A 2415-8 in the name of Wolf King Investments. The application for consent is proposing to permit a construction of a semi-detached dwelling on two separately conveyable lots. The application for minor variance proposes a relief from section 7.2, table 7.2 of the R2 zone to reduce the minimum required lot area for the lot to be retained from 290 square meters to 274 square meters. And to reduce the minimum required lot area for the lot to be severed from 290 meters to 276 square meters. Through the commenting process, the city's building department has identified the requirement for additional variances, including relief from section 7.2, table 7.2, provisions to reduce the required lot frontage for the lots to be severed and retained from 9 meters to 8.9 meters, and relief from section 5.2.2 to reduce the established building line from 7.75 to 7.7. Subject plans are described as Part Lot 22, west side of Norwich Avenue, Plan 189, as in 470905, and are municipally known as 31 Cronin Street. The subject lands are designated low-density residential in the county's official plan and are zoned R2 in the city's zoning bylaw. The minimum lot area provisions of the bylaw are intended to ensure that lots have sufficient area to accommodate adequate building envelope that maintains sufficient setbacks and provides space for amenities and drainage. The minimum lot frontage provisions of the bylaw are intended to ensure that lots are wide enough to accommodate an adequate building envelope that maintains sufficient setbacks and area for off-street parking. The established building line provisions are intended to provide a streetscape with consistent setbacks in established communities. In consideration of the requested variances to lot frontage, staff have reviewed the proposal in the context and policies of the official plan and are of the opinion that the proposed variances are appropriate as they provide adequately sized lots and provide sufficient setbacks for neighboring properties and space for off-street parking to the existing dwelling. Staff are satisfied that the reduced lot areas and frontages are minor and desirable development for the lands and maintains the intended purpose of the zoning bylaw with respect to the provision of adequately sized building envelopes and sufficient setbacks. As such, staff recommend that Woodstock Council advise Land Division Committee that the city supports application A 2415-8 submitted by Wolf King Investments And further, it recommends that the City Council advise the Land Division Committee that the city supports the proposal to sever the subject lands, subject to 6 conditions of the report.
Thank you for that. Any questions of the planner? Seeing none? Looking for a motion on the floor. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. That Woodstock City Council advised the Land Division Committee that the city supports application file A24-15-8 submitted by Wolf King Investments, Inc. for lands described as Part Lot 22, WS Norwich Ave, Plan 189 as in 470905, City of Woodstock, and municipally known as 31 Cronin Street, as it relates to 1, Section 7.2, Table 7.2, R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum lot area of the lands to be severed from 290 square meters to 276 square meters. Point 2, Section 7.2, Table 7.2, R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum lot area of the lands to be retained from 290 square meters to 274 square meters. And item 3, Section 7.2, Table 7.2, R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum lot area for a duplex from 18 meters to 13.7 meters. And Section 7.2, Table 7.2, R2 zone provisions to reduce the minimum lot frontage for the lands to be severed and retained from 9 meters to 8.9 meters. And the recommended relief meets the 4 tests of a minor variance as set out in Section 45(1) of the Planning Act as follows. Number 1, the relief is a minor variance from the provision of the city zoning bylaw. 2, the relief is desirable for the use of the land. 3, the relief maintains the general intent and purpose of the city's zoning bylaw. 4, the relief maintains the intent and the purpose of the official plan. And further, that the City of Woodstock advised the Land Division Committee that the city supports the proposal to sever the subject lands subject to the listed 6 conditions.
Well done. Seconded by Councillor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion or questions of staff? Councillor Schanberg.
Yeah, this will evolve into a question eventually, but I just want to say that on the Tuesday planning meeting, I thought it was rather unfortunate that there was nobody that represented the owners or the developers or the agent that was present at the meeting to even talk about the variances. Now I can see by looking at the setbacks and how much they want to change or change from what could be or should be built there is definitely a minor variance. It's not a big issue. But the other point I wanted to sort of make, and it's one of those things only because I know the so-called cameras are running. Here's also a situation where somebody's already started constructing the building. We've seen people before take, say, a 60-foot wide lot and say they're going to sever it in half and build 2 detached homes. They'll start building the first home, but they'll leave the second home until their severance is completed and then build the second home. But in this case, it's a semi-detached, so they are attached. And the construction, as we've talked about also at Tuesday's planning meeting, is already under construction. So it's just a bit of a word of advice or word of warning that I think the city council deserves a little bit more than what we received from our planning report on Tuesday, to not have the agent or the developer here. Having said that, I am in favor of the review.
Okay, thank you. I don't think there was a question there after all. No, okay. Anyone else? Seeing none, then I'll just call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So next up, 9B, ZN 8-24-20, application for zone change. Mr. Miller. And this is on the Delatre Ave, for those wondering. Thank you.
So application ZN 8-24-20, in the name of 10999-709 Canada Inc. The purpose of the application for zone change is to rezone the subject lands from R225 to C311 to permit an additional 4 units to a converted dwelling containing 3 units to permit a total of 7 dwelling units. The applicants are requesting a special provision to permit alternative zone provisions, including a new minimum lot area per dwelling unit, the minimum lot frontage, minimum interior side yard width, minimum landscaped open space, minimum landscaped open space and amenity space, and a minimum setback from parking areas. The subject property is described as Part Lot 2, east side of Delatre Street, Plan 10, as in 397795, and are municipally known as 18 and 20 Delatre Street. The subject lands are within the county's central area and entrepreneurial district of the official plan, are currently zoned R225 and are requested to be zoned C311. Specifically, the special provision is requested to reduce the minimum lot area per dwelling unit from 150 square meters per dwelling to 141 square meters per dwelling, to reduce the minimum required lot frontage from 20 meters to 16.8 meters, to reduce the minimum required interior side yard width from 3 meters to 1 meter, to reduce the minimum required landscaped open space from 35% to 32%, to reduce the minimum required amenity space from 30 meters per dwelling unit to 15 square meters per dwelling unit, and to reduce the minimum setback of a parking area from an interior side lot line from 1.5 meters to nil. The subject lands currently contain a 3 dwelling unit converted dwelling and large accessory structure. The applicant is proposing an addition to accommodate 4 additional dwelling units and the relocation of an existing accessory structure. The subject lands are designated entrepreneurial district according to the City of Woodstock's Central Area Development Plan as contained in the county official plan. Permitted uses in the entrepreneurial district designation include residential uses, commercial uses including office conversion, personal services, business supply and services, repair, service shops and for small appliances, as well as business uses including cottage industries, fabrication and assembly uses, and indoor storage within wholly enclosed buildings. The entrepreneurial district is further located within the city's central area and generally forms the outer ring of the city's downtown. The central area permits residential intensification where it complies with the policies pertaining to density, form, scale of the residential development being proposed. The central area is the most intensive and functionally diverse area of the city and serves as the primary business, cultural, and administrative center in the county, as well as the key residential intensification area. The subject lands are currently zoned R225 according to the city's zoning bylaw. In addition to the R2 uses, the R225 zone permits a 3-unit converted dwelling house and recognizes the setbacks of the existing structures and the size of the accessory structure that are currently on the property. The application seeks to rezone from R225 to C311 to permit 4 additional dwelling units for a total of 7 units. The C3 zone permits nearly 24 non-residential uses in addition to a dwelling unit in a portion of a non-residential building, a home occupation, any residential use permitted in the R2 zone, and any residential use permitted in the R3 zone. In this instance, the R3 zone provisions apply to the proposed use, and the R3 zone permits an apartment dwelling house, a bed and breakfast, a boarding or lodging house, a converted dwelling house, a group home type 1, a home occupation, a horizontally attached dwelling house, a multiple attached dwelling house, a retirement home, and a street road dwelling house. The additional dwelling units would create a development that is considered a multiple attached dwelling house as defined within the city's zoning bylaw. Through the public consultation of this, received a couple of emails, a couple of calls. There were some delegations at the public meeting on Tuesday. There was delegation again tonight, so I'm sure you're all aware of those concerns. Through the public consultation, there were some questions about when this owner took over the property. According to the data I have available to me, it looks like the current owner, which is separate from the manager of the building, was 2018. Through this application, the applicant proposes an addition to the rear of the existing residential building to accommodate the 4 extra dwelling units and proposes to relocate the existing accessory structure on the property to accommodate the additional required parking. The applicants intend to retain the accessory structure for storage space for the residents and for storage of maintenance equipment. With regard to the zone provisions requested to reduce the lot frontage, side yard width, and parking area setback, these features currently exist on site with the existing structures and with the exception of the parking area setback have previously been recognized in the current R225 zoning. The proposed addition or relocation of the accessory structure will not further reduce the zone provisions associated with the existing structure. Lot frontage provisions are intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for a building envelope, access, and off-street parking. Side yard provisions are intended to ensure that adequate space is provided for access and normal maintenance of structures. Parking area setbacks are intended to ensure that adequate space is provided for parking and that vehicles do not trespass onto adjacent properties when parking. Providing the long-term existence of these uses, staff do not anticipate a negative impact from the alternative zone provisions requested here. Resulting from the proposed addition and increase in dwelling units, the applicants have also requested alternate zone provisions with respect to lot area per dwelling unit, landscaped open space, and amenity space. These provisions are intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for amenities, outdoor storage space, and space for drainage. The applicants have requested a minimum lot area per dwelling unit of 150 square meters, or from 150 square meters to 141 square meters. A minimum required landscaped open space from 35% to 32%, and to reduce the minimum required amenity space from 30 square meters per unit to 15 square meters per unit. For the most part, these are minor departures from the existing zone standard and are not anticipated to have a negative impact on the proposed development. Further, the subject lands are approximately 17 meters from the city's central area, where these provisions are significantly reduced and where the city anticipates significantly more dense development. Planning staff are satisfied that the proposal is consistent with the policies of the provincial policy statement, meets the general intent and purpose of the official plan respecting permitted uses in a residential intensification within the entrepreneurial district designation, and it can be given favorable consideration. As such, staff recommend that the city of Woodstock approve the application.
Thank you. Questions of the planner? I got one for you. Don't go too far. Sorry, I almost got away. And I apologize. I probably should ask this on Tuesday evening. I thought of it afterwards. If this is approved as presented, is there a guarantee of the main house being renovated? Or can they simply build onto the back without any renovations to the main building?
Through the chair, there might be a better question for the applicant or for the building's office, but I believe that to change the units, they'll have to renovate at least a portion of the existing building.
Realize the back part would need to be renovated to attach to it, but there is a fair bit of concerns, and I know a lot of property standards concerns in the building itself, so that's where it's coming from, making sure everything is fixed up if needed, but. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Okay, looking for a motion on the floor. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council deny the application for lands described as Part Lot 2E/S Delatre Street, Plan 10, as in 397795 in the city of Woodstock, to rezone the subject property from Special Residential Zone 2 R2-25 to Entrepreneurial Zone C3-11 to facilitate the 7-unit multiple attached dwelling as the non-standard zone provisions requested do not provide sufficient space for amenities, outdoor space, and space for drainage. And further, that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on the floor? Councillor Tate? Discussion? Councillor Leatherborough?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So obviously, I still believe that it's critical that Woodstock City Council take each planning application on a case-by-case basis. For the public that are here and those that participated at Tuesday's meeting, I appreciate your time. It's a delicate dance that this council and municipal councils are in, seeing as the provincial government has expectations around building more homes and faster and build them yesterday. So that being said, it is of my opinion that it needs to be written in a way that is planning matter related and planning language, if you will. So that is why it's written this way. My opinion is that I am concerned for the residents that live within this property. Lack of communication never gets us anywhere. And I am concerned about the density that exists as well as the neighborhood.
Thank you. Councillor Tate?
Just through the chair, I agree with the motion because I don't like these infill projects to begin with, but the street is very narrow. I have concerns about the parking and the access up and down the street, and to me, it's too much in such a short block.
Thank you. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Just a comment that I will also be supporting the motion, much to what Councillor Leatherborough and Councillor Tate have already said, but additionally, there are concerns from the residents that are living in this home currently as well that I hope are also addressed through this process. Somebody's music's playing. I hope that those are addressed as well, because from what we're hearing from these folks, there are obviously concerns that need to be looked after, and I hope that you get those and know that you have council support as well. And if you need support, don't hesitate to reach out to your council members so that we can also advocate on your behalf as well.
No, you should have been here Tuesday for that. That's what Tuesday's opportunity was, sorry. Council, would anyone, I'm sorry. I'm gonna have to say, I'm sorry, you're not available to. Council, anyone else? Denied. Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. By denying the application, which I could support because I really feel sorry for these people that's living in the vicinity. I understand the parking and so on. But what I worry about is if it is appealed, it becomes a cost to the city to fight the case. And as we've seen in other cases, the appellant seems to be successful. Also the owner, if we deny this, is he going to just leave it in the state it's in, which is deplorable, and as what we've heard? Those are some of my concerns by totally denying this application. That is why I would put a deferral motion on the floor if this fails, but that is my concerns with denying it.
Thank you. Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I'll echo your comments, Councillor Lauder, that is one of my concerns coming into this discussion. That while the social conditions are deplorable and egregious, I think from a planning perspective, the planner has given us a favorable report. And so it opens us up to the possibility of appeal at our cost. So that does concern me. So I'll say that I'll support your comments there, and that if it were a deferral, I would be in support of that rather than a complete denial.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'll just, I'm basically echoing Counselor Lauder and Counselor Martin's concerns. We need housing. It's a clear directive. The property standards is a huge concern of mine. There's no question. And I wish there is a way to guarantee if this was approved, because I would normally tend to approve these type of applications or be in favor of them, I'm sorry. With the idea of the whole place being renovated and cleaned up and those tenants having the opportunity to move back into nice, clean units. That's not clear, and I apologize to the applicant. I wish they were here Tuesday or had applied ahead of time to be a delegation, but it's based on council's wishes. And for that reason, I would be in favor of deferral for the opportunity to speak. Because again, I think we will have a tough time defending this at the tribunal with a clear support from planning department as well. So with that, if anyone else, before I call the vote? All right, I'll call the vote. All those in favor of denying the application? 3, oppose the application? Okay, that is failed, sorry, yeah. So looking for a new motion on the floor, Councillor Lauder.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council defer the application for lands described as Part Lot 2, east side of Delatre Street, Plan 10, as 397795 in the city of Woodstock to rezone the subject property from Special Residential Zone 2, R2-25 to and entrepreneurial, Zone C 3-11, to facilitate the 7-unit multiple attached dwelling until February 2025 in order to provide the applicant time to address the poor condition of the subject property.
Thank you. Is there a seconder on that motion? Counselor Martin, would you like to speak to that motion, Counselor Lauder?
Yes, as I said before, I am very concerned with him leaving the property the way in this deplorable state, the way it is, and what the people have had to put up with, the neighbors and the people that living in that building, as what we've heard from Tuesday night and again tonight. And I have great sympathy for that, and I would hope that they prove that they're going to do as what they've said in the report, said that there was a new management company, give them time to clean up their act and so show consideration and defer it until February when we can look at it again. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Counselor Martin, the seconder.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Property standards and planning are two separate issues, and so I would encourage the residents of Delatre Street to take action on the property standards and your concerns there. That is certainly a great path forward to take for you, and that if this motion to defer is passed, I would suggest that this is a gift to the applicant to get a second try to redeem this property.
Thank you. Counselor Leatherill? No. Okay. Anyone else? Well, then I'll echo that. I think this is, does give the applicant, and I'm glad you're here tonight as well as some residents, the opportunity, make sure the property is up to standards, and we'll take a look. I really would like to see improvements on the property, but we'll see how that goes. Okay, anyone else before I call the vote? And of course, this is on the deferral motion right now, to be clear. All those in favor of the deferral? Opposed? Motion is carried. Next up, we have 9C, OP 24-09-8 and ZN 8-24-17. Application for official plan amendment and zone change. And this is 570 Walter Street.
Application for official plan amendment and zone change, OP 2409-8 and ZN 8-24-17. The official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the subject property from low-density residential to medium-density residential to facilitate the development of a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The zone change application proposes to rezone the subject lands from residential zone 2 to special residential zone 3 to permit the multiple attached dwelling with special provisions to address lot area per unit, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks from parking areas. The subject lands are described as Part Lot 30, east side of Victoria Street, Plan 212, Part 1, 41R, 3014, and are municipally known as 570 Walter Street. The subject lands are currently designated low-density residential in the county's official plan, and the proposal is to redesignate them to medium-density residential. In the city's zoning bylaw, the existing zoning is R2, and the requested zoning would be an R3 special. The subject lands contain an existing duplex. The existing building is proposed to be added onto the west to facilitate the renovation of the existing building to become a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The subject lands are designated low-density residential according to the City of Woodstock Residential Density Plan. The application for official plan amendment proposes to redesignate the lands to facilitate medium-density residential development. The maximum net residential density of an individual development in the low-density residential district is 30 units per hectare, and no building shall exceed 3 stories in height at street elevation. Medium-density residential areas are primarily developed or planned for low-profile, multiple-unit developments that exceed densities established for low-density residential districts. These districts are intended to include townhouses, converted dwellings, apartment dwellings. The maximum net residential density for the medium-density residential district is 70 units per hectare, and no building shall exceed 4 stories in height at street elevation. The proposed 5 units would have a net residential density of approximately 60 units per hectare. The subject lands are currently zoned R2, and the applicant proposes to rezone lands to R3 special to facilitate the 5-unit multiple attached dwelling. The R3 zone requires a minimum lot area of 150 square meters per dwelling unit, lot frontage of 20 meters, maximum lot coverage of 40%, front yard depth of 6 meters, rear yard depth of 7.5 meters, an interior side yard width of 3 meters, exterior side yard width of 6 meters, minimum 35% landscaped open space, and a minimum amenity area of 30 square meters per dwelling unit. The proposed multiple attached dwelling does not meet the zone provisions for the minimum lot area per dwelling unit, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. The applicant has requested a minimum of lot area per dwelling of 140 square meters, a lot frontage of 18 meters, a minimum rear yard depth of 4.2 meters, and associated with the parking configuration, the applicant has requested 1 parking space within a required site triangle, a reduction in required parking from 1.5 spaces per dwelling unit to 1 space per dwelling unit, a setback of parking from an interior lot line from 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters, and a setback of parking from the street line from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. Further, city building staff have identified that a proposed deck and step potentially encroaches into the right-of-way on the exterior side yard. A reduction in permitted projections into required yards is required to reduce the minimum setback from 2 meters to nil. The proposal is generally consistent with the official plan policies respecting the designation of additional medium density sites. The subject lands are located between Wellington Street and Parkinson Road, which are arterial roads, and the addition of 3 units are not anticipated to impact traffic in any adjoining low density residential areas. The subject lands are directly adjacent to Southside Park, including an entrance to Southside Park, and are approximately 400 meters from 2 large schools. Although the site is generally surrounded by lands that are designated for low-density residential uses, the area is punctuated by several pockets of land that have already been designated and built for medium-density residential uses. With respect to the proposed zoning amendment, planning staff are supportive of the applicant's request to establish alternative zone provisions. The minimum lot frontage requirement of 20 meters in the R3 zone is established to ensure that adequate space is provided for building envelope and off-street parking. The lot exists at 18 meters and is a minor departure from the current zone provisions with no negative impacts anticipated from the addition of 3 dwelling units. The minimum lot area per dwelling unit for a multiple attached dwelling is 150 square meters per dwelling unit in the R3 zone and is established to ensure that sufficient space is provided for the dwelling unit, amenity and landscape space, and parking. The applicant is proposing a minimum lot area of 144 square meters per dwelling unit and is a minor departure from the current zone provision. The subject lands are in very close proximity to Southside Park, and those amenities can also be utilized by the residents of the subject lands. A minimum rear yard depth of 7.5 meters in the R3 zone for multiple attached dwellings is required. This provision is intended to ensure that sufficient space is provided for drainage and amenity spaces. The applicants are proposing a rear yard depth of 4.2 meters, and the proposed addition is located in this space. Due to the orientation of the lot, the subject lands primarily utilize the interior side yard as they would a rear yard, and approximately 6 meters of depth is provided in this location. Due to the increased interior side yard width and proximity to Southside Park, no negative impacts are anticipated from the requested 4.2 meter rear yard depth. New entrances are proposed with the conversion of the dwelling structure. The city's building department has indicated that decks and stairs associated with an entrance will project into the required exterior side yard and may project to the property line. This entrance is not associated with the proposed addition, but with the existing structure to be renovated, and the building department has indicated that they are satisfied with the projection to the property line. Site-specific provisions are requested related to parking, including a reduction in the minimum required spaces, parking in a corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. Provisions regarding parking areas are established to ensure that adequate parking spaces are provided, to ensure that cars do not trespass on adjacent properties when attempting to park, to ensure that vehicles can safely enter and exit the property, and to ensure that parking does not create sightline issues on abutting streets. The application is proposing one parking space per dwelling unit where 1.5 spaces are required in the R3 zone. However, the applicant has shown that each of the 5 dwelling units will be one-bedroom units, and based on the number of bedrooms, staff are satisfied with the requested reduction in the required parking spaces. Section 5.1.3 of the zoning bylaw requires that no object higher than 2 feet, including parking of vehicles, shall be permitted within the required 7.5 meter site triangle. The applicant has shown that a small portion of one parking space will be located in the site triangle. Due to the wider than conventional right-of-way in the area, staff have no concerns with the parking space being partially located in the site triangle. So if you actually take a look at plate 3, which is up on the screen, you can see that in the applicant's sketch there, they've sketched on the site triangle, and you can see that it's a fairly small corner that's included in that site triangle. So it's, your car's probably not actually even in that space. Further, section 5.4.4 of the zoning bylaw does not permit parking within a required front yard. As previously stated, the orientation of the lot means that the required front yard functions more like a side yard and represents the current location of the parking area with no meaningfully feasible alternate locations available. Therefore, staff do not object to the proposed location of the parking area. Finally, the applicant has requested a setback of parking areas from an interior lot line of 1.5 meters to 1.2 meters, and a setback of parking areas from the street line from 1.5 meters to 0.5 meters. These setbacks appear to be fairly consistent with the existing parking situation, and staff have no objection to the proposed location. This office is of the opinion that the amendment to the official plan to accommodate the proposed developments on the subject land generally complies with the relevant policies of the official plan, and the proposed zoning bylaw amendment is appropriate and can be given favorable consideration. As such, staff recommend that the City of Woodstock advise County Council that the city supports the application to amend the official plan, and that the City of Woodstock approve in principle the zone change application.
Thank you. Any questions of the planner? Seeing none, I'll look for a motion on the floor. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council advise County Council that the city supports the application to amend the official plan, file number OP 24-09-8, submitted by Senjik for lands legally described as part lot 30 East South Victoria Street, Plan 212. Part 1, 41R3014, City of Woodstock to redesignate the subject lands to medium-density residential to facilitate the development of a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling building on the subject lands. And further, that Woodstock City Council approve in principle the zone change application, file number ZN 8-24-17, submitted by Senjik for lands legally described as part lot 30 East South Victoria Street, Plan 212, Part 1, 41R3014, in the city of Woodstock to rezone the lands to special residential zone 3 R3-SP to facilitate a 5-unit multiple attached dwelling building with reduced lot area, lot frontage, rear yard depth, minimum required parking spaces, corner lot site triangle, location of parking areas, and setbacks for parking areas. And further, that any comments received from the public were reviewed and considered before the decision was made in relation to this planning matter.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Councillor Schadenberg. Discussion or questions of staff? Councillor Schadenberg.
Yeah, maybe just a comment. I always thought that this property in particular, because it's so close to Southside Park, would be a great candidate for intensification, as that process has been more and more talked about in the past 6 years since I've been on council. So I just think this is a great project, and 5 one-bedroom units is also good too, because a lot of the builders, for example, will say, well, gee, we need 2-bedroom and 3-bedroom units. So to maximize our rent value or things along that line. But the 5 one-bedroom units might be very attractive to the market.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I just want to say, first off, thank you to the applicants for being there Tuesday night, listening to any concerns, speaking with the tenants, and also for being here tonight and being a delegation, open to questions. I too agree with Councillor Schadenberg. I think one-bedroom apartments are very much needed here in the city, and with just probably requiring just simply 5 parking spots for 5 one-bedroom apartments does make sense. On Tuesday evening, one of the residents was clear that there is no parking issues currently there, so I don't think this is going to be too bad. But I appreciate, again, the applicant's, at least the consideration in looking at more parking if available. And anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So next up, number 10, consideration of correspondence. 10A from St. John Ambulance, Southwestern Ontario, the change of date request. Councillor Lauder.
Thank you. I'll move that Woodstock City Council approve the change of date requested from St. John's Ambulance, Southwestern Ontario region to place mobile road signs from October 21st, 2024 to November 18th, 2024, subject to staff approval.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Schadenberg. Discussion? Or questions? I'll just state then, if this looks familiar with people, it is. The date has changed. Now it's going to be next week, I believe it is, or the 18th. So tomorrow, it's going up tomorrow. 21st. That's right. Thank you very much. So the date has just been changed, and the location is changing for St. John Ambulance, the training center, but I still don't know the new address, so I would share it if I did. So with that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Thank you. That is carried. Next up, 10B, Councillor Martin is requested following correspondence. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'll make the following motion, moved by myself that whereas the current funding for critical small urban and rural intercommunity transit service is set to expire in March 2025, putting the sustainability of the service at risk. Therefore, be it resolved that Woodstock City Council urges the provincial government to continue funding Southwest Community Transit beyond March 2025 to ensure the ongoing viability of this essential service for small urban and rural Ontario. And further, that this resolution be circulated to SCORE, South Central Ontario Region Economic Development Corporation, the Honourable Ernie Hardeman, Oxford MPP, the Honourable Prabmeet Sakura, Minister of Transportation, and other relevant stakeholders for their support and advocacy.
Thank you. Is there a seconder? Councillor Leatherborough. Discussion? Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I think I've spoken about Southwest Community Transit before. This is a transit system that covers actually 9 counties throughout Southwestern Ontario. It was initiated in 2019 as a pilot project funded by the Ministry of Transportation. And it's not necessarily the individual services, but it is the interconnectivity from one county to the next, to the next, to the next that was the project. We know that this services just over 2 million, a population of 2 million people. We know that 20% of the riders use it to get to work. People use it to get to healthcare appointments, to education for college or university. 10% of riders are newcomers to the area, and so for affordability, they make use of the system. We also know a large number of users are in a lower income bracket, and so they rely on transit. And a large number of users are over the age of 65, and so this community transit system allows them to age in place. So this communication came to us through Oxford County, but it also came to us through Lambton Shores, which is one of the 9 member municipalities. And you might wonder, why is this relevant to Woodstock? The Southwest Community Transit actually does have a stop right here in Woodstock at the transit depot. So the TGO operates a system that comes from Tilsonburg up to Woodstock, and a number of people, the bus is full every morning, and then it continues on to Ingersoll and into Middlesex and towards London. And so it is currently a very well-used route in this area. We have about 160,000 riders anticipated, 165,000 riders anticipated by the end of this calendar year. So We know that people from Woodstock get on this system to move throughout Oxford County and into our neighboring jurisdictions. So asking the province to continue supporting it. If it does not continue to receive provincial support through the Ministry of Transportation, most of these interconnected routes will not survive. And so the economic impact of those who use it to get to work is close to $750 million in economic impact to these 9 counties. So I just wanted to highlight it. I encourage people, if this matters to you, that people be able to get to work each day, to contact your local MPP and the Ministry of Transportation and share your thoughts on it.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Schadenberg.
I was reading online to sort of Google the transit systems also in southwestern Ontario, as Councillor Martin was discussing. And I found the Stratford Today newspaper, which is basically an online newspaper. I don't think they actually print anything. But it said that their PC Connect rural route, that's Perth County rural route, is in the same position where March 31st, 2025. They will have to likely discontinue theirs that goes to Milverton and Millbank and a bunch of other places and Listowel and whatnot, the northern sections of towards Perth County and northward beyond that. But at the end of the day, the real tug of war therefore becomes, in the way back when, there were stagecoaches, obviously. But as time evolved, the Greyhound buses were covering some of these smaller rural areas. And to be able to sort of think, well, at what point in time, and that's where the tug of war is it something that the province should help fund? Or is it something that independent individual businesses should be trying to operate? Because I know our city buses, which at times run on a pretty good capacity, but quite often don't run at a very good capacity, cost a lot of taxpayers' dollars for subsidies for these programs. And we do get gas tax money to help run our transit system to boot, but it's still going to cost us a lot of money per year. I think it's almost $10 per ride per person on the average based on usage. So I can only guess what it would be like in some of these rural areas.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, just for information, the province didn't come out, I just looked it up, October 7th with new OTIF funding, Ontario Transit Investment Fund. So hopefully they are looking at this and they will be addressing some more funding. I realize the new funding is trying to add additional buses, but I'm taking it that they must realize the importance of this if they are putting this funding out. So Councillor Martin.
I'll just speak to that. You're absolutely right. The OTIF funding, Ontario Transportation Infrastructure Fund, I think it stands for. Unfortunately, so that is a great fund, and SCORE through SCT is applying into that fund. That fund does not cover the operations of the existing routes. That is ineligible. What that fund will support is increased efficiencies. So right now, all 9 of those systems, and Councillor Schadenberg referred to the Perth Connects, that's one of the 9, they all operate independently. But if they operated together as a group of 9, there would be more efficiencies in software procurement, marketing, branding. You know, as you can imagine, a bigger system is more efficient to run than 9 smaller systems. So we're hopeful that we'll get that OTIF funding, but it doesn't change the fact that the existing operating is still in jeopardy.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I agree, and I realize that that's not, it was more for information for the general public that they do recognize the importance of that kind of transit, the interconnections, and hopefully we will see them extend the funding. Anyone else before I call the vote? With that, all those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So no presentations for staff. We do have a mayor's report tonight. 12A, support for Oxford Ontario Health Team application for the Heart Hub. Councillor Tate.
I'll move that Woodstock City Council supports the Oxford Ontario Health Team application for homelessness and addiction recovery treatment hub funding, and authorizes the mayor to submit a letter of support endorsing the Oxford HOT application.
Thank you. A seconder, Councillor Wismer Van Meer, Discussion, Counselor Tate?
Through the chair, just for the public's benefit, I just want them to be aware this is not a Woodstock or Oxford County council item. It is fully driven by the hospital, and if they are successful for this area, they will be running, excuse me, they'll be running the hub. So just for everybody's benefit, it is not a city or a county initiative. It was the hospital, but I'd like to thank the province for going in this direction. I think a number of us at this table, when the discussion came up that this is where we thought that this is where the money needed was to help people, was addiction and mental health beds and the detox beds, which are surely lacking. Now, having said all that, I think chances are, I don't know, it's going to be very difficult, so nobody get their hopes up because there's so many that want it and so few dollars. So if we get it, it's going to be fantastic.
Yes, thank you. Counselor Schanberg?
I just looked at my computer screen. Today is October 17th, and I know the deadline to get these letters in or get the applications in for the RFPs or whatever is October 18th. So I hope you've prepared your letter ahead of time, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you. I've been in contact with OHT. They know it's coming. I just simply stated that I wanted to wait in case we had to change anything in the letter that we felt strongly as a council before we sent it over to them. But we have been in discussion. They're hoping for the letter this evening. Anyone else? Counselor Lauder?
Just a comment that I certainly support this request for the mayor submitting the letter of support to strengthen the Oxford Ontario Health Team application for the local heart hub, which could significantly have a great opportunity in our community should we be able to get this. So fingers crossed that we are successful. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, I'll speak to it. I don't often use mayor's report, but this is really important. I think this is something that this council's been very clear on. We refer to it as a campus of care many times throughout the last almost 2 years now. When we did our strategic plans, it's been highlighted. There's been a lot of work behind the scenes on this one. I know I thank OHT as well as Woodstock Hospital and CMHA and everybody involved. It's been discussed for a very long time. I believe we are ready. I think we've got a great application. I think our chances are decent. I know there's quite a few applications, but I'm going in and continuing to be positive. And I thank council for this consideration for me to supply a letter of support. Anyone further before I call a vote? All those in favor? That is unanimous. I will be sending a letter through. Thank you very much, everyone. No councilor reports tonight, but we do have some department reports starting with administrative services. So 14A1, Statement of Revenue and Expenditure and Statement of Capital Expenditures for period ending September 30th, 2024. Councilor Schattenberg.
Yeah, motion that Woodstock City Council receive the Statement of Revenue and Expenditure and the Statement of Capital Expenditures for the period ending September 30th, 2024 as information.
Thank you. Any seconder, Councilor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion, Councilor Schattenberg, or questions?
Yeah, you know, it is a question from the mayor through to, I guess, Dan Locke from the Works Department would be the best one to answer this question. And we did talk about this earlier today via email, but it's sometimes it's one of those things where you look at revenues and expenditures, and sometimes you receive too much information in a report, and sometimes it's almost not enough information in a report. For example, in the Works Department, a budget for this year for winter control for $1.047 million. And there's a different category for snow removal. So I just want an explanation for anyone that may have seen that, what winter control is.
Through you, your worship, to the councilor's question. So winter control is primarily our road Plowing and salting activities is what that account looks after. And it's made up of staff wages, our supplies, salt and sand supplies, and our equipment charges are a big part of that, as you can imagine with the equipment that we have for winter. The snow removal is, we do snow lifts in the downtown, and that's where that comes into play. And we have a lot of narrow streets and curb face sidewalks that we remove snow from as well. So that's the explanation of that. There is one more winter account, which is our sidewalk snow maintenance account again, and it's made up of the same kind of staff, equipment, and salt and sand supplies.
Thank you. Councillor Schadenberg, continue.
Yeah, a question this time from the mayor through to, I guess, Harold DeHaan from our engineer's office. I did notice on page 19 that the sale of water meters projected to be 90,000 for this year is only at 13,100. Does that go as a parallel to the maybe fewer building permits we've seen?
Your worship, through the councillor, that is correct.
Thank you for that lengthy explanation. Anyone else? Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I just thought I would point out that in the report, we saw that camp registrations were actually up over 66,000 for revenue, which means the expenses are going to be higher than projected, but we were still above, we still kept in the positive of that. So kudos to our recreational department of Parks and Rec. Obviously our camps and all of that goes around that are doing very well and are very well attended. So congratulations to them. I thought it was really, I thought I would just mention that so that the public can hear that kids love these camps, and I think the parents do too.
Yes, I did notice that, and I'm glad you mentioned that. Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I'm on page 57 because I was just scrolling through, and that was the page where I noticed a couple of things. We're entering Q4, and we're, there's still a few lines where we haven't either procured some equipment or it's still showing as 0%. So on this page, it's fleet and equipment, replace a street sweeper, replace a forklift, replace a mower. There's a few things here, half-ton truck. Are we still having challenges with supply chain with equipment like this, or is this pretty normal that by the time the RFP goes out and, Q3 and evaluations that we actually end up seeing all of these costs show up in Q4?
Through your worship to the councilor's question, the various different procurement vehicles will come, they'll have different delivery dates because there's different build times to them. For them to go out, we'll see a lot of the common vehicles come at the same time, like pickups, but when you get the one-offs like sweepers and I'm not quite on the page that you're on, but just in general, the builds are unique. So they come when those timeframes are, and yeah, there is still some supply chain issues, but it has gotten much better in recent last 6 months or so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Looks like we're in good shape in general for sure, and I think staff are also keeping to budgets and where we can. So with that, I'll just call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Next up, we have 14A2 Municipal Code Chapter 330 Fees and Charges. Looking for a motion, Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the fees and charges as detailed in the attached report and that the necessary bylaw be passed.
Thank you. Seconded by Councillor Lauder. Discussion or questions? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, a comment that this is another report that I've bookmarked to my laptop. I think I understand that there's some increases to various service and activities, but it's really helpful to be able to look at such a long chart, breakdown of prices around aquatics, equipment rentals, space, art gallery. So I'll definitely be keeping this on file because it's all right there in the report.
Yes. Anyone else? Counselor Schadenberg.
Yeah, along that same line, so anybody who takes the bus on a regular basis, the fares are still $2.75 for one fare. It's not, we're not increasing transit prices projected at all for 2025.
Thank you. Anyone else? With that, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up, we have engineering, 14B.1 Dundas Street redevelopment phasing and cost estimates. Looking for a motion on the floor. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council receive the report regarding Dundas Street redevelopment phasing and cost estimates as information.
Thank you. Seconded by Counselor Martin. Discussion? See, Counselor Tate?
I didn't know if the mover or the seconder was going to comment. Yeah, I wrote this out so I wouldn't forget any of it. So thank you to through the chair. Thank you to the city engineer for providing this in-depth report which breaks down the substantial cost of executing the downtown streetscape master plan. Obviously, spending over $50 million to complete this project requires in-depth research and should not be taken lightly. In addition to the cost, I'll also note that both previous and current city council have already spent $4.5 million invested in real estate as part of this downtown plan. In terms of the timeline, funding for the downtown development plan was first approved in February 2018, reapproved in January 2019, and then adopted by council in July 2022. One of the key recommendations from the downtown development plan was to undertake a streetscape master plan. The streetscape master plan was undertaken in 2021, 2022, and was adopted by council in October of 2022. Engineering undertook the detailed designs for the streetscape in 2023, and funding for phase 1 was approved in 2024. This timeline is important to note because one of the arguments for moving ahead with phase 1 is that we've been talking about it for so long. In fact, we may have not talked it through enough given the cost, recent tax increase, and expensive upcoming project discussions like the Cronin complex. I've also heard the comment that city council needs to do the downtown because previous councils have done nothing for this city. This is not true. So here's a list of some of the projects that the councils I've been on or have worked together with staff to deliver to the residents. This is just some of them. So skate park in Southside Park, splash pad water park at Southside Pool, fully accessible playground in Southside Park, full update of the ball diamonds in Southside Park, Cowan Fields, additional money into the paving budget each year, flooding plan for Warwick and Brompton Park, Toyota, art gallery to new location and full renovation of building when it moved to Dundas, Commerce Way Industrial Park, Woodall Way Industrial Park, bought 2 more locations for industrial parks, bought 4 buildings in the downtown for Museum Square, hired BIA economic position for the downtown, new decoration lights and display for the downtown, started putting funds for the Southside Pond project, partnership with Ducks Unlimited, total renovation of the Border Works property and opening of the depot for Woodstock residents, outside work on the library and museum, renos inside and out of the original market building, addition of a number of parks, including the Shauna Lawson Park and Ludington Park, with complete play areas and adding basketball courts, replaced all children's equipment in existing parks, paving of trails at Roth Park, working out an agreement with Upper Thames for full use of both sides, renovation and addition at both the police station and the fire hall, saving the water department. The bus depot bought the building and had the depot built. Now, my purpose in reading this list is to illustrate what can be done for the benefit of the entire city and tax base without having a negative impact on the city budget. I supported most on this list, some I didn't, but at the end of the day, the impact was usually a 2 to 3% increase each year. This was possible because staff and council worked to ensure that all projects were well planned and thought out in terms of the scope and the cost for our size. We all agree that no one wants the downtown to become a blight and fall into disrepair. In fact, all the previous councils before this one have spent a large amount of taxpayer money on the downtown. I believe it was 32 years ago. It was completely redone, and since that time, a number of things have changed in the city. In the past 3 decades, new trends and challenges have emerged. The 2020 Downtown Development Plan document notes the rise of the big box store as well as online shopping, which dramatically increased during the lockdown. Will our downtown ever be a thriving hub for local shoppers again? Not according to the current trends. The Downtown Department Plan points to arts and culture as the biggest current economic growth opportunities. Hence, our previous emphasis on Museum Square, the gallery, library, and restaurants. I wasn't convinced that Museum Square would draw people downtown, but was willing to try as nothing else has worked. I was just in Salt Lake City. Their downtown is stunning. Colored sidewalks, marble planters. There's a beautiful mall in the middle of all of this, waterfalls, fountains. They had a square where live music was playing, all surrounded by office buildings full of white collar jobs. The place was empty. There were numerous empty storefronts on the street, no one shopping in the mall. I went at different times of the day because I thought maybe it was the time of the day, and I went on Saturdays, all the same. Then traveled to a number of big box malls. They were packed. In recent years, there's been a huge demographic change in Woodstock, which will bring thousands of new homes into the coming years. Do we know if these new and future families want the kind of downtown that we are proposing to build? Will a costly renovation address the challenge that we are facing with the homeless, mentally ill, and addicted population in Woodstock? We have been struggling to find the resources to meet this challenge. Is there enough research to suggest that 50 million for the downtown will make it safer, cleaner, and more appealing? Yes, the pictures and the designs and the streetscape look amazing. So did Salt Lake City. However, I would suggest that when this comes to budget, we need to get a good hard look at what will help our city and be the most effective. I refuse to believe that anyone thinks that spending more than 20 million alone on sidewalk and roads will help address the new trends and challenges that we are all facing. And once again, I would like to thank the city engineer for the in-depth report, because it's very important for the public to be aware. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder?
I also wish to thank Mr. Dahan for this in-depth report. 37 to 47 million, not including interest on the debentures required to pay for this project. It's a real eye-opener, and everyone should take note of this. In the report, it states a detailed concept articulates the redevelopment of City's Museum Square and City Hall block. Museum Square proposes a larger, more programmable public space which may be enjoyed by all. The development of Museum Square is a project that I have been in favor of since it was introduced in 2017. But the streetscape project with an anticipated cost of in excess of 15 million plus interest is not something I'm in favor of, especially when this was repaved in 2019, and I am told that it has a 25-year lifespan left on it. As has been stated by Councillor Tate, previous councils have been working toward the development of the Museum Square with the purchase of the 4 buildings in the block, and this term, the 5th building, that being TriStar, and to anticipate it to be demolished during the 2026. This totals in excess of 4.5 million spent to date on that area. When it has been stated, we are doing nothing to improve the downtown. There is the CIP grants, loans, and tax back grants totaling in excess of 1.5 million, which has been administered to date. But those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Schattenberg?
Yeah, from the mayor, I guess the comment I'd like to make is that look at Dundas Street in particular, in the fact that as Councillor Tate mentioned the infrastructure work, the work underground, it does not need to be done, and it doesn't not say there would be a lot of work on ground that would be done with this project for streetscape. But I think the one thing we have to keep in mind always is forward budgets. One of the reasons we do a 4 or 5 year rolling budget is so we know what projects are coming up. So if we start filling up phase 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 with all of these streetscape projects, in my mind, that certainly is going to be taken away, because you can't do a phase 1 without sort of saying, well, the bulldozer's moving, not the bulldozer, but the steamroller's going now. We have to be able to finish the entire project. And the only part of it that I would think would be something that you would at one point in time might debate is whether or not you want to go from Wellington to Beale. But I really do think you'd be forced to go, once you start this, from Wellington all the way to Van Sittert anyway. But speaking about Van Sittert, I know, for example, by looking at the capital budgets, and I don't want to be off topic, but this is all about capital and where we're going to get money to work on roads and stuff. Wellington still has to be done between Mary and George, and it's projected for 2026. Wellington from George to Dundas, 2027. Wellington from Dundas to Main Street in 2028. So that's quite a long 3-block stretch pretty well as you go past Hatch and whatnot. And then Dundas Street itself has to be still done from Van Sittert to Oxford, because that was technically put off after we redid the realignment and put the stoplights in it to Van Sittert and Dundas, that we did not do the project. And Dundas, Van Sittert to Oxford, and I mean, I'm not an engineer, but it's been put back to 2028 now. And so you can see that somebody's projecting the dollars and where they're going to have to be spent at some point in time. But we have agreed to phase number 1. That's why I sort of say it becomes very, very difficult to sort of look at this project and say, well, for 2025, as the program that Mr. DeHaan's put together suggests, well, let's, in the 2025 budget, let's include phase 2. Well, I'm not sure we got the dollars for that. So I'm going to be voting no on this.
I'll just remind council, I mean, this is for information only. We're not voting on future plans that is going to come forward, just to be clear. We've already approved phase 1. It's going to start in the spring of next year. And during our capital and budget discussions, we will be talking about all these future projects 1 year at a time, or one phase, or each phase at a time. So just keep that in mind. Anyone else? Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I really appreciate this report. There was a lot of detail, Mr. DeHaan. People have been asking questions for quite some time on, you know, on the details, right? Really drilling down on timelines and costs and what block and north and south and this means a lot to the community, and I know this because I received an email from a member of the community before I'd even had a chance to open my laptop to review this week's agenda. And so I think that as we look ahead to the next number of years, I've talked about fiscal responsibility a lot at this table. I think we're going to have a good plan. I think we're going to have to be, sharpening our pencils as we go. But what I do appreciate is, for me, we spent a lot of time early in our term of council updating our strategic plan. And we identified as a council, this is our strategic plan, that we do want a safe and inclusive community for all. We want to enhance the vibrancy of the downtown core. We want to promote Woodstock as a place to attract and retain business. We want to create Woodstock as a destination. And then when we talk about fiscal responsibility and accountability, we identified 2 key priorities of developing a long-term financial sustainability plan. And provide the necessary resources to support community and economic growth. And when we talk about that long-term financial stability plan, I'm not an expert. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I know that we need to get very serious about that long-term plan, because this is one of many very expensive projects that we are probably facing in the next, I'll say decade, but it could be less than that. And I think the community wants us to put our thinking caps on how do we accomplish all of this for our community in a financially responsible way. So appreciate the report. We'll fully support receiving it for information, and I hope that the community takes the time to read through it and ask their questions.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Leatherborough.
Through your mayor, really pleased to see this report, certainly because as indicated in the report, at the meeting of December 14th, 2023, City Council adopted the following resolution, which was that project downtown revitalization be removed from the 2024 capital budget and the 2025 to 2028 capital forecast. So I'm just happy to see this back in the queue for future councils. If and when this project in its entirety is completed, it will stretch over the span of 3 council terms, 2018 to 2030. And I'm certainly not of the opinion that past councils have done nothing, but I would certainly challenge anybody that feels that way to put their name on the ballot in 2026 to either stop this project or to make sure it goes forward. So it is a receive as information. We'll see what phase 2 looks like at our capital budget. And thank you very much for this report.
Thank you. Anyone else? I just want to take the opportunity to thank staff as well, to Mr. Dehan and staff for putting this on. I know everybody was kind of has their hands in this as far as staff is concerned, and thank everyone involved. This is really important for transparency, to show the general public what we're looking at, the kind of numbers we're talking, but also the timelines involved. I think this is something that needs to be done, spread out in a very efficient and cost to save money where we can, but it still needs to be done. So by looking at it as phases this way, I'm very happy to see this, and thank you for all the messages I got in favor and against. As always, I appreciate them all and keep them coming as we move forward into budget talks, and we'll see about phase 2 and forward, what that timing looks like. But I am excited to see phase 1 started. So last chance, anyone else? So again, just for the public information, this is to receive this as information only. All those in favor? Against? That is carried. Next up is 14B2 sole source purchase, Cowan Park Sportsplex generator. Looking for a motion, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approve the purchase of the Cowan Park Sportsplex generator.
Thank you. Looking for a seconder, Councillor Lauder. Discussion or questions of staff? Councillor Martin.
No, the only comment that I'll make is I like to see that this is a local company right in our backyard that we can source this from. So that makes me happy.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Next up, 14B.3, replacement of municipal code chapter 0232, fowl, pigeons, livestock keeping. Looking for a motion on the floor. Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Schadenberg that Woodstock City Council direct staff to prepare a bylaw to incorporate species-specific exemptions for keeping of backyard pigeons into municipal code chapter 0232, fowl, pigeons, livestock keeping.
Thank you. And seconded by Councillor Schadenberg. I did catch that. Discussion, Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I spoke to this at our last meeting when this was on the agenda. With what was brought back to council, there was 3 options for anyone that didn't read the report, especially those who have concerns with what is happening with backyard fowl, having, you know, whether that's ducks, chickens, whatever it may be, that birds that they're having. My concern is there are folks that have pigeons for hobbies like racing and showing, and those folks did potentially face some setbacks and repercussions that could go against them if there was a complaint that came forward. There's a lot of other municipalities that do have these exemptions in there. I've spoke with people in the community who do have pigeons who, whether it be for showing or racing, and I've discussed with them what their thoughts are on this. I'm hoping that the current bylaws that we have can stay as they are in these exemptions, and that we look at having language added to the bylaw that would stipulate that the keepers have to be a member in good standing of the Canadian Racing Pigeon Union or potentially the Canadian Pigeon Fanciers Association, and that the birds must be banded with a metal or plastic leg band that identifies the owner of the bird. So I'm hoping that this is something that will be considered in these exemptions, but I don't want to see people who have this as, you know, as I spoke to one person, they said, these are our pets. You know, we use them for racing and for showing, but they are still our pets. So that means they care for them, they take care of them. And just like those of us that have dogs, cats, or if you're like me and lucky and have a rabbit, you know, you care for them the same way, they're caring for them the same way we do for those. So yeah, I'm hoping that that's what we can look at having put into this bylaw.
Thank you. Councillor Tate.
Just through the chair, I just want to acknowledge all the work that Councillor Wismer Van Meer did on this. Everybody has their own little niche, and the people came to her and she did all the work. So thank you very much for all the work you did.
Yeah, I'd like to echo that as well. Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder.
I too want to thank Councillor Wismer Van Meer. I know she's done a lot of work and we talked about this the other night, and I totally understand what she's saying and agree with the request that she's making for the bylaw change. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing none, call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Nothing from cultural services, Parks and Rec, but we do have economic development tonight. Sorry, nothing from economic development. We have clerks tonight. Yeah. Did that just make you sweat? I'm gonna have to do that again sometime. My apologies. But we do have clerks. Procedure bylaw update, public release. Councillor Tate.
Seconder. I'll move that Woodstock City Council refer the procedure bylaw update, public release of agendas report to the bylaw section of the agenda.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Martin? Discussion or questions? Councillor Tate.
I have one question through the chair to the CAO, and then I just have a comment I want to make. So this is the first time in my entire 20 years we've had an issue with this. So I just want to make it clear, and just the CAO to comment, once that agenda is received from staff, it is a public agenda, is it not?
Your worship, through to Councillor Tate, I guess by way of background for the members of the public, the council agenda is provided to City Council on Friday, late afternoon, by way of email. It's provided to council at that time to give them the opportunity to familiarize themselves with the content of agendas that will run 300, 400, 500 pages over the weekend. We make the agenda public on the city website by noon of the Monday before the council meeting, which is held on the Thursday of that week. And that is what the procedure bylaw lays out for staff to do, to simply publish the council agenda, the open session council agenda on the city website by noon on Monday before the council meeting of that week. There's nothing in the procedure bylaw, there's nothing in the code of conduct or other policies that stipulates that the information that council receives on Friday benefits from some privilege that would make it not accessible to the public. So it is simply a courtesy to provide council with this material, give them a few days' time to familiarize themselves with it. So this report essentially proposes to council that we make an amendment to the procedure bylaw whereby the agenda that is provided to council on Friday, late afternoon, we would provide that on the city website and make it available publicly at that same time. That is what we see our peers in other cities and townships and governments around the area do. If council wishes to proceed with the way that we have conducted ourselves in the past, that can also be accommodated, but we would suggest then that a amendment to the procedure bylaw or perhaps also the code of conduct whereby there's a statement that council is to keep that material privileged. Now that would only prevent council from sharing that material before it's made public the following week. I think it's important to point out that none of this benefits from any confidentiality privilege, and all of the materials that are accumulated for the open session of council are always available to members of the public should they ask. And so where council can bind themselves to some conduct whereby they would not share the material, the reality is the material is available to the members of public as of right under the Freedom of Information Act.
Thank you. Counselor Tate?
So just further to that, that was more information that I asked for, but that's fine. And county council for all my years has worked the same way. It's published on the website, so it's just a glitch thing. So I just want to comment on the confidentiality. So I want to remind council that a document in public or confidential is solely based on content. So there's no one in this building that has the authority to declare something as confidential based solely on the content, and provincial law determines what defines that. When a document is created and when it's confidential is clearly marked on the document. A public agenda created by a public meeting is a public document as soon as it is created. I have no idea why a member of council would want an agenda with some sort of grace period from Friday to Monday. The public owns the corporation of the city of Woodstock, not the CAO, not the staff, and certainly not us council. That agenda belongs to the public. Just because the city made the decision not to post to the website does not make it any less a public document. This has never been an issue. As I said, in 20 years I've been on council, and certainly not before me, because it actually wasn't electronic until halfway through my first term. So everything was delivered in paper. So the bullying comments related to this issue are disgusting. There was people that were on social media questioning people, and the comments were absolutely terrible. And I know for a fact that the BIA all received this Friday, so I don't know what the big deal was. And even the stuff that was pointed at me was unprofessional. As a matter of record, I sent that report to everybody I knew and to the press. Because a report like that is important to everybody, and the public should be aware. Why anyone thinks that the public should only have a few days before a meeting is beyond me. The public needs to be fully aware before it comes to capital budget and what is going on, because as it turns out, phase one has been passed and very little of the taxpayers had any idea. So I fully support this procedural change to post it to the website right away. I don't know why the decision was made a long time ago. It would have been when Mayor Harding was, and it was just probably because everything was new and he had everything electronic. But in no way was this ever confidential. It would say confidential. So I am very offended how some people in the public have been treated over this.
Counselor Leatherborough?
Through your worship, just because I have it here too, when we're talking about procedure bylaw, I think this is great that the public and council will get it at the same time, but just for council's refresh, if we haven't all looked at the procedure bylaw in a long time, Article 7, rules of conduct, council members, 16.71, member of council, prohibitions, a member of council shall not, A through I, specifically B, speak on any subject other than the subject under debate, C, criticize any decision of the council except for the purpose of moving that question be reconsidered or rescinded, B, disturb the council by any disorderly deportment or conduct, E, use profane or offensive words or insulting expressions. So I could go on, but I think this too should also be circulated as we make this minor housekeeping adjustment.
Okay, I'm gonna state that I asked clerks to bring this forward. I want to be clear that we're all under the same page, that, I have enjoyed I'm gonna call it a courtesy that we received it on the Friday, so we just got a little extra time with it, and then, of course, it went public, usually by 9, 10 o'clock on the Monday morning. I know sometimes slightly later, but always by noon, as the CIO mentioned. There is nothing that is not public, and for that, I'll agree with Councillor Tate on a couple of things she mentioned. It's for transparency reasons, we do want to get it out as soon as possible. I truly believe that. So if this has a extra weekend for somebody to read over it and gather questions, all I would simply ask is if you are sending counsel, and I'm talking to the public right now, if you're sending something to a counselor, just remember they just received it as well. And give them the courtesy to get the information and get back to you as soon as possible. I am in favor of this. I like the transparency of this. I am used to this now at county council. And don't see any reason why we couldn't, and that way we're clear and release everything at the exact same time. So with that, I'll, Councillor Schadenberg.
I guess just a point of clarification, especially when it comes to something like planning, because planning comes from the Oxford County side of things. So if you go to the Oxford County website, look at planning, go to the city of Woodstock, it'll actually tell you which reports are complete and when the public meeting is for those reports. So somebody, for example, doesn't matter what street it is, really have no excuse not to know when they see a yellow sign on the property. Oh, I want to know more information about that. Just a reminder that it's the Oxford County Planning Office, because the official plan belongs to the County of Oxford, not the City of Woodstock, as we have Mr. Miller here tonight from the County of Oxford.
Thank you, Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. I really like this. I like that we're cleaning it up. It's very streamlined to me. This is very straightforward, this change. You've mentioned county council, but we all sit on different committees and boards, and often on Fridays, it's not uncommon to receive 3 or 4 agendas and pour through those over the weekend. So I really like this, and I like it in particular because you have the honor of talking to 2 different radio stations on Monday morning, and sometimes that airs before the agenda is public. And so this really does give people the opportunity to review the agenda before they hear from you on Monday morning. And for some people are hearing it for the first time. So I like this a lot. I think it just, it cleans it up, and I'm fully supportive.
Yes, thank you. As am I. Anyone else? With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. So to the general public, please look forward. Starting next meeting, we should be able to release everything on the Friday, same time we do. So thank you for that. Next up, Chief Administrative Officer, 14G.1, Norwich Boundary Adjustment. Councillor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council direct staff to proceed with the revised option 1 minimalist approach for a boundary adjustment between the city of Woodstock and the township of Norwich. And further that the necessary bylaw be prepared to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute a boundary adjustment agreement between the corporation of the city of Woodstock, the corporation of the township of Norwich, and the county of Oxford. And further that upon execution of the agreement and all other necessary documentation by all 3 municipalities, staff be directed to forward the required information to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing. And further that the costs incurred as a result of the boundary adjustment process be funded from account number 0170-51015-0519, contingency reserve.
Thank you. Second by Councillor Lauder. Discussion? Councillor Leatherborough, or questions?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I did ask the CAO earlier today if he could just give a high-level summary, but specifically the piece in the report referring to the commercial/industrial tax phase-in, because I do think it could be helpful for the public. Thanks.
Thank you, Your Worship. Through to Councillor Leatherborough. What's before council is the final approval by the City of Woodstock Council for moving forward with a rather small 106-acre boundary adjustment with the Township of Norwich. The Township of Norwich has similarly approved it. With that approval, they did request this council to give consideration to providing a tax mitigation or tax phase-in relief to commercial or industrial ratepayers within the affected area. This is something that was requested as well with the 2018 Township of Norwich boundary adjustment. And at that time, we did look into it. We did obtain a legal opinion. It's quite clear the Municipal Act prohibits a municipality from offering any assistance to any manufacturing, commercial, or business or industrial enterprise through the form of grants, loans, or waiver of any taxes. And so it is simply a violation of the Municipal Act for us to move forward with that. So we don't believe it would meet with provincial approval as we move forward with that process. So the Township of Norwich has been advised of that restriction. There are really very few properties in this boundary adjustment. The tax mitigation and the tax phase-in that has been included in this proposal would only affect the residential and the agricultural or farm parcels. And I believe there's one house and one farm that will likely be converted to a industrial plan of subdivision quite quickly. So tax mitigation, tax phase-in, really very negligible impact within this small area. Where we go from here, with council approving this evening under that assumption, it will advance to the county council for the third and final approval. If approval is received at that level of government, all three levels of government have then approved it. We can then proceed to prepare the boundary adjustment agreement with Norwich, as well as the county. Execute that agreement and prepare the final package for submission to the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, and seek the minister's order. So this will all take some time. We expect that the earliest implementation date would be January 1 of 2026 at this point.
Thank you, and thank you for that. Councillor Martin.
Thank you. I just had a question to follow up on that. You've mentioned the Municipal Act, and historically, we haven't been permitted to bonus at all. It's been called bonusing, to offer any tax incentive or free land or whatever it might be. But is Bill 185 that I think received royal assent in the spring this year, maybe it was June, is that going to have an impact on this or on future boundary adjustments where the Lieutenant Governor and Council can allow municipalities to offer some incentive to businesses? And I'm not sure that that Bill 185 has even outlined what those, I don't know that we know the details on what that could look like, but is that likely to be an impact to us in the future when a request like this comes down, or we just don't know the answer to that?
Your worship, through to Councillor Martin, don't know the answer to that yet. Any of the regulations under that bill, to mine, I have not been able to find them on e-laws at this point, so I don't think they've been loaded. Perhaps they haven't been finalized. With respect to bonusing, there is always the opportunity to do a community improvement plan, but you can't do a community improvement plan until the area is within your municipal boundary. So there's a chicken and the egg problem with that approach. So we do that in our downtown, and we are talking about doing it in a broader sense in the municipality, but it just doesn't work in this scenario right now. It's possible in the future the province will diminish those restrictions on us, and we can look at different things, but to my knowledge, not at this point.
Thank you.
Yes, I've had the same question as well, and without any clear answers. Yeah, anyone else? Seeing none, I'll call a vote. All those in favor? That is carried, none opposed. Human Resources, 14H.1, Director of Administrative Services. Counselor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council direct the Chief Administrative Officer to manage the recruitment process for the Director of Administrative Services / City Treasurer with the best use of staff resources, and that council appoint Mayor Accioni to participate in the interview process.
Okay, thank you. Is there a seconder? Counselor Wismer Van Meer. Discussion or questions? Counselor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. Yeah, I support the motion the way it's read. I think that council has one employee, and that's the CAO, and so the CAO is tasked with the search and recruitment and hiring and firing of directors, well, all employees within the municipality. Of course, with strong mayor powers, you now, as mayor, have that also hire and fire. And so serving on the committee does make some sense. But I think that given that the CAO is our only employee, that this is the direction to go.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? I'll just simply say that I would enjoy being part of the process and look forward to it, and just say again, it's a bittersweet, of course, to lose Diane, but I gotta say, I gotta thank her again for sticking around, helping us through, because I know with all your years of commitment, you can certainly walk away at any point, but you're not willing to do that, and I thank you for that. It's gonna be hard to replace you in general, so thank you. Anyone else before I call the vote? All those in favor? None opposed. That is carried. Thank you. Nothing from Fire Services or Public Works or IT. Special Committee and Advisory Task Force reports. Looking for a motion. Councilor Leatherborough.
Moved by myself that Woodstock City Council approves $35,000 from the Community and Social Wellbeing Reserve Fund to fund a free transit for students promotion for the month of November 2024.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder on the motion? Councilor Wismer Van Meer, discussion or questions of staff? Councilor Leatherborough.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, again, to the CAO, I have two questions. One is, I was absent at the last mayor's task force meeting, so I should preface with that. Just wondering why November was selected instead of, say, December or January. That's question number one, because I believe this reserve, if you will be topped up or refunded come March. So it does seem like we still have a couple months to trial this program. So timing, and then also what would happen if some student went in and got a monthly pass at the end of October? And then obviously if November was chosen by council, what would happen to their monthly bus pass? Would that kind of carry over to then the following month? So those are my two-part questions.
Worship through to Councilor Leatherborough. November, I'm sure November would be chosen because November is traditionally a high ridership month. And it's preferred over December because November will give us much better data in the form of impact on ridership, because November people are following their daily routines far more than in the month of December, which is interrupted by a holiday season. So if we're looking for what is the impact, I would always select November as the month. With respect to remuneration or reparations for reimbursement of passes that had been purchased, I'm sure we would make arrangements internally to either refund or to transfer to a different month to make sure that there was no financial loss to that transit user.
Thank you very much. So to follow up with that, I guess I'm just curious, council's thought on, for advertisement's sake, if it was January, February, a bit more of a lead time. And I was thinking that, again, I don't know if that would change specifically the 35,000 price, not to muddy the waters, but I was also thinking that January is a really hard time for a lot of people. And then Blue Monday, I believe, falls in February. So just thinking about people getting out, youth. Again, January is tough for a lot of people. Every time is tough. January is exceptionally tough because everyone's Christmas and holiday season can look differently. So I'm just wondering if there's interest in another month or if there's any feedback about the questions that I've volleyed. And I didn't ask Mr. DeHaan, so that's why I asked the CAO.
I'm going to touch on that, if that's okay, Councillor Ledborough. That was discussed. We were talking about what months, what would be the best time frame. In fact, I questioned November right away due to advertising. Could we get it out there and get it out in time to make sure it was effective? The staff felt, yes, that we could get it out there, especially to students. That's the joy of social media. We can get out there pretty quickly. It was actually discussed, I was at WCI earlier today, and it was discussed that something like this may be coming forward. When we were talking to agendas, they questioned why it was being discussed. There's a lot of excitement by this. There is, so I would say the class, there was 28 in the class and probably 15 of the hands went up, roughly half say they use transit on a regular basis. And then when I asked, would you use it more if it was free? Everybody put their hand up. So I was encouraged by that. I definitely support staff for the reports of all the ridership that was given in. If we decide to do another month, I mean, we do have the task force as of actually January 1st of next year. We can look at and bring it forward to council considerations. If we wanted to add February or March, for example. December was kind of ruled out because of the holiday, as the CAO mentioned. January is kind of ruled out for the same sort of reasons, that overlap, we wouldn't get a true feeling. So I do support November myself. I think this was kind of a smart, and we'll get a really good idea of the intake of this. So Councillor Martin, if that answers your question, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. How are we defining youth? If someone has a 5-year-old, 7-year-old, is that a free pass? Is it high school? Is it school age? The province identifies youth as under the age of 29. Pretty wide sweeping youth category.
Your worship, through the councillor, at a staff level, we talked about basically visually, if they're high school students or younger, we would do it visually. Obviously, if they looked older, we would ask for a student pass, in which case that would also include Fanshawe students and things like that.
Councillor Wismer Van Meer.
I had some of the same questions that Councillor Leatherbarrow did as well. Questioned about November. I'm a little nervous pushing this through on October 17th and expecting this in November to be up and going. The one reason I thought it would be beneficial of potentially waiting just a slight bit was the Youth Advisory Committee is going to be kicking off in November, and we're going to be meeting with the youth, so perhaps they're able to help us with that. But I do support seeing what a program like this runs, and I trust staff's reasonings for picking November. It's not judgmental. I'm not judging that at all. I am a bit nervous on how accurate we'll get with this short notice, but in just speaking to some community members myself, and I work in an agency with youth every single day. I know that there are young people that rely on transit. We have a number of youth that walk to our agency every day because they don't have bus passes. So I'm hoping that this is something that they'll utilize and that will help with that. But I'm hoping that we can get the message out there in November. I realize maybe November 1, not everybody's going to know, but I'm hoping that if this does pass, that staff and council members and alike all do our best to get the message out there to people and letting our youth agencies within Woodstock know as well, so they can share that with their young people and caregivers and such. So I did have some hesitations about it. I love the idea of giving some free transit to young people, and I'm hoping that we can get the word out there quickly enough for this, so.
Thank you. Anyone else? Councillor Lauder.
I was always of the understanding the funds approved in this account were for encampment expenses, however, or whatever was required under that. Upon checking with staff, there's approximately $50,000 left after the payment of the 4 cleanups is applied, and there's 2 cleanups yet that has been done and still has to be paid for. There are additional cleanups, and billed, and there's 34 activity sites, I'm told, that will require cleanup activity before, when the winter comes along and they move, these people move into someplace warmer. So I really question doing this at this time when we're short of, could be very short of funds to clean up the encampments. So that's my concern.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Tate.
Yeah, just through to your worship. I also struggled with this because I thought when we passed the motion to set up this group, that it was to deal with the encampments and the homelessness. So I'm not sure, are you aware that there's still 34 homeless encampments?
I'm assuming that question is directed at me, Councillor Tate. Yes, no question. But at no time the social well-being was, the encampments was the focus our first year. It absolutely was, to get staff the resources they need to address it quicker, because it wasn't part of any budgets or anything else. That's why staff have come forward with something on a regular basis to put forward to council's consideration for allotments. The social well-being fund has always been just that, for the social well-being. This year it was decided that we would focus on youth and food insecurities. We haven't done much in food insecurities, unfortunately, at this point, beyond discussions and everything else. As far as dollar-wise, we haven't spent any. This is the first youth funding that was being proposed and discussed at our social well-being committee, so at the Mayor's Task Force. But by no means has it been designed for encampments alone, because I think that's a much bigger issue, and that needs dedicated staff time and resources to address, far more than the resources within that Mayor's Task Force. Councillor Tate.
Yeah, so further to that, so I probably wouldn't have been in favor of that task force then, because to me, that's taxpayers' money. So now it looks like we're trying to find some place to spend it. We have the FAIR program, and I think there's $5,000 still left in the FAIR program. So if somebody needs to apply for that, they can do it, and we've spent a lot of money on that. My concern is, I think the focus should still be these encampments and the homeless issue. It is going to cost a lot of money to clean these up. So where's the money going to come from now? So I would never approve putting more money into this group again, unless it's going to that. I mean, last year you helped out with some of the homelessness and offered supplies, etc. And then we had to take some money for the encampment cleanup, but it is nowhere even close to being under control. So I don't know why focus was changed. I understand youth is important, but so are seniors. So there's a huge impact right now with the economy with seniors. We can't start doling out the taxpayers' money on stuff like this without more consultation, especially when we haven't got these encampments under control. So I I appreciate all the work that's done on that committee, and I know everybody takes a lot of time in the consideration, but I can't at this time spend taxpayers' money on something like this for 1 month when we're gonna have to, they're gonna have to pay for the encampments, so it's gonna come from somewhere.
Well, first off, I'm going to comment to that. The funds we are designating come from the OLG. It's a way to give back to the community. We have spent, I believe, upwards of $80,000 towards Operation Sharing. So it hasn't gone all to encampments. We've just recently spent $100,000 of it in encampments. So because that was such a large need last year, it was the focus. There's no question it was. I do support us looking at whatever needs else there are in the community. If there's another need, if there's a senior need in the community and they want to bring it forward to the task force, then all of us would listen to that and then bring it forward to council, because ultimately, I'll remind council, is we decide as a group. The committee itself just puts recommendations and thoughts together and see where the needs are. And at budget time, it'll be discussed again, and we'll have the opportunity to put less or add more to that committee as a general. And I just want to remind all of council that the money is sitting there and would like to help the youth in some shape and form, and this is how it come forward. Councillor Schattenberg.
Yeah, a question from the mayor through to, I guess, Harold DeHaan from the engineering office. As your report states, $996 is the average cost for a ride, but you paid $275 for it. So we all know it's heavily subsidized to begin with. Is there any way you can take provincial gas tax money and allocate some of that towards fares for youth? Or what specifically is that money have to be used towards when it arrives?
Your worship, through the councillor, we use the provincial gas tax money towards the whole operation budget. I don't think you can separate it to space pay for specific passes.
I was just gonna add that if people didn't see the report, it's $53 per month that a youth pays. And the question I was gonna ask is the same one that Councillor Martin asked, and that's, how do you describe a youth? Whether they be a full-time student at Fan Job, or there's people that are 22 or 23 that are full-time students, but there's people that work a job, say at Walmart, that are 22 or 23, and you talk about having a living wage or not, that work at a full-time job that are taking buses to get to work, not to go shopping, and they could be in the same position, but they're not a student.
Thank you. Anyone else? With that, I'll call the vote. All those in favor? Opposed? The motion fails. Next up, note. Okay, looking for a motion to take it as information. So at the clerk. Councillor Tate,
I'll move receive as information.
seconded by Councillor Lauder. Any further discussion? All those in, sorry, Councillor Leatherborough?
Sorry, just one comment as it's related to this, but I would really appreciate seeing a motion in the new year for seniors riding transit. I agree that encampment needs to be finger on the pulse, is what I've said before. We've also talked about budgets tonight. I do hope to see an parks encampment response to some degree that we'll have to decide within our budget process. But I have a child that's in grade 7 and thinking about if there was a transit youth opportunity that was free transit rather, it would be great to take them on the bus. I'd have to pay for my fare as an adult, but to teach him the transit. Obviously, I still will because I have the means to be able to pay for his fare, but I think this is a great opportunity. Other municipalities are certainly doing this, but I would like to see an option of even youth and seniors coupled. So all of those middle folks keep walking. So thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then I'll call the vote. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So taken as information for those watching at home, meaning no free transit rides, at least at this point. Stay tuned in the future possibly.
You should point out, though, there is the fare program. They can.
Of course.
buy.
Sorry. Yes. Thank you. That good? All right. Next up, we have notice of motion. Counselor Tate.
The Woodstock City Council provide a $500 grant to the Woodstock Baptist Cemetery funded from the Community and Social Wellbeing Reserve Fund in order to provide support to clean up an encampment on the cemetery property.
Thank you. This will be debated under new business at the November 7th meeting, so not looking for any motions or discussion tonight on this. Any new business? I'm not aware of any, which brings us to the draft bylaws. Counselor Tate.
Myself, seconded by Councillor Schadenberg, that the following bylaws be given a first and second reading. 9713-24, a bylaw to amend the City of Woodstock Municipal Code, Chapter 93. 971424, a bylaw to amend City of Woodstock Municipal Code by repealing and replacing Municipal Code Chapter 330, entitled Fees Charges. 971524, a bylaw to amend the City of Woodstock Municipal Code, Chapter 16, Procedure.
Thank you. Discussion on those? Or questions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Schadenberg. That is carried. Counselor Tate.
Moved by myself, second by Councillor Lauder. Am I reading this 9705 that's written on this paper? Okay, all right. 9705-24, 9713-24, 9714-24, 9715-24.
Thank you. Last chance. Any questions or concerns with those? All those in favor? Those are carried. And with that, that is the end of the agenda. We're going to start tonight with Councillor Tate. Good? Sorry.
First,
Yeah.
I wanted to give my condolences to Rolly Lavin's family, Wayne Campbell's family, and Dr. Harvey's family. Rolly was a big supporter with Minor Ball and a number other of activities in the city. His wife has always been involved in a lot of volunteer. They've been real forces in the Woodstock. Sorry to see their passing. Wayne Campbell was a local dentist for 50 years and his family was involved in the community. And for us at WCI, Mr. Harvey passed away and he was a big supporter of the community and did things. And it's always sorry to see these people pass away that contributed so much. It doesn't seem the next generation is picking up the ball. So you attended the Rotary, Councillor Lauder and I attended the Rotary cheese and tasting. And they announced, I think there's 10 to 15 members in that Rotary Club. It used to be they didn't take anybody on because there were so many. So it's always sad to see this and hopefully people will get back into the volunteering and commitment to the community. And just another comment, just by chance, when I was in Salt Lake City, just when you're in different cities, you're noticing what's going on and asking how they control the homeless situation, et cetera. Anyways, there was a police officer standing on the corner, so I stopped and chatted to him for quite a while. And it was basically about the homeless, but then we got into actual policing and stuff. And I have to say, policing is such an important part of society and important of every community. It was funny when I was talking to him, he'd been a 30-year police officer, and I was discussing how it's changed, how my husband had retired. The last call he had, and I think I've said, there was a gun. So even in Woodstock now, it's scary. There's all these gun crimes that never used to be. It's really difficult for them. The mental health, the challenges. I know my son went through for it, and him talking to his colleagues that actually went in, it is not the same as it used to be, and it is difficult. So when you see an officer, thank him. This officer said to me, you know, tell your ex-husband, thank you for his service. I thought that was a really nice thing to say. But it is, I mean, you have a service to your community. So when you see an officer, speak to them, thank them, and realize that is probably one of the most difficult jobs that we have right now. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you. Counselor Wismer Van Meer.
I'm gonna try to keep it short because I've got a very long weekend ahead of me. We have our big night out charity ball this weekend, so I'll be setting up all day tomorrow after I finish working after hours here now. Just a couple of things I wanted to mention. Theatre Woodstock has a lot coming up over the next few weeks. My Old Lady, it sounds like quite the terminology, but that kicks off. They actually opened tonight. That they had a flash sale, so I hope that folks that aren't watching or aren't here grab those tickets for a nice cheap price of $10 for tonight, but that show runs until the 27th of October. Sean McCann is coming back again to the city of Woodstock. Sean is known as the Shanty Man, but it was also one of the founding members of Great Big Sea. Puts on a fabulous show. We'll be in Woodstock at the theater on November 2nd. Tickets are still available, so you can get those tickets. There's a couple of other events coming up as well. So I encourage you to go to the Theatre Woodstock website just to check out and see what's coming up at the theater. And just one more plug to let folks know that the Youth Advisory Committee is still accepting applications. So it's youth 13 plus. We did get an update today from staff saying that we've already gotten quite a few of applications. So we have over 14 applications already. So that's really positive. I'm really excited to see that number. We're planning our first meeting, but just remember that that is open till the end of October. So get your applications in, 13 plus. I'm really looking forward to working with youth on that committee. Everyone have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you. Counselor Schadenberg.
Everyone knows I like food and hockey, so let's start out with hockey. 2 items to do with minor hockey. The Woodstock Hockey Day is on Saturday, October 26th, obviously at the Reeves Community Complex. There'll be online auctions leading up to it. A lot of kids' activities and Meet the Navy Vets starting at 11 a.m. in the morning, so 11 a.m. till 3, I believe. And so many other things going on, including from the fire department, Sparky the Fire Dog will be there. So it's October 26th. In the month of November, since we don't meet again, obviously until November, November 1st to 3rd weekend is the under 14 and under 16 Silver Stick qualifiers for the city of Woodstock. So the Woodstock teams will be competing obviously against teams from other centers. And then the weekend of November 15th to 17th, it's the under 10 and under 12 Silver Stick qualifiers. And Councillor Tate was just talking about volunteers. There's been a lot of volunteers that have gone through that Woodstock Legion Minor Hockey Tournament Committee over the years. Pat Langdon being one, and of course, Bill Carruthers has been on that committee probably for, I would say, 50 years running Legion Tournament committees in Woodstock, certainly well over 40. And now talking about food, the Oxford County Community Health Center is continuing their series called Kitchen Confidence for the month of October, Monday, October 21st at 10 a.m. They're making 2 different soups. So just giving people hints on how to make soup from scratch. 539-1111 is the phone number for Oxford County Community Health Center if you still want to sign up for that at 35 Metcalf Street. And the fourth item to do with food is birthday cake. I understand our CIO, David Creary, has a birthday tomorrow, so we want to wish him a happy birthday. And I'll be by the office around 11 a.m. for my slice of chocolate cake.
Thank you. Counselor Lauder.
Thank you. Just a reminder that on Saturday, October the 19th, from 1 to 3 is the Woodstock Art Gallery's Fall Open House. The afternoon will feature tours of our new exhibition featuring the work of Betty MacArthur and the Grand National Fiber Touring exhibit, Delights. There will also be wood carving demonstration by the Tri-County Carvers, as well as the launch of the new book dedicated to Florence Carlyle writings. The event is free and everyone is welcome. Also, it has come to my attention as a member of the Woodstock Police Board, there is misinformation on social media that the Woodstock Police are not utilizing MHART. For the public's information, MHART works a 5-day week with our officers, having an office at the police station and a complement of 7, with the majority of the staff having a nursing background. This is a CMHA partnership between the Woodstock Police Service and the OPP, funded by CMHA, and a grant the police department receives from the mental health workers. The program provides joint response to calls related to stimulation, crisis, mental health related concerns, and or addictions related concerns. The partnership originated with Chief Longworth and is ongoing. MHART is highly recognizable and a professional service to our police officers. For further information on the service, please check the Woodstock Police website or Woodstock Police Facebook. And thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Leatherborough.
Thank you. I didn't think that the addresses and comments were supposed to be used for that, but I will say that the correction was that the Woodstock Police budget wasn't going to fund additional MHART clinicians. So I don't think there is a misconception out there, but the addresses and comments are self-serving at the end of the meeting. So mine is that I hope staff has a great rest of their evening tonight.
Councillor Martin.
Thank you, Mayor Accioni. This weekend, I'm going to be packing two things, my passport and my patience, because we're heading to Sylvania, Ohio for our Sister City weekend. The Fall Harvest Festival, I believe is what they call it. And there are 10 of us, I think, heading down there to foster relationships with our sister city and enjoy some time together. So the US isn't necessarily the place where I want to be right now with a few weeks out from an election, but I'm sure that we'll have a lot of fun with our sister city hosts. I did stop by the bank today to pick up a few dollars in US money. And yes, I see the mayor shaking his head. It was $1.46 per dollar. So that was a little bit painful, but I'm really looking forward to the weekend. This will be my first time heading down there. We've hosted them here, but I'm looking forward to heading to Ohio.
Yes, thank you. As I am excited, this is not my first. Let's just leave it at that. It's been a long time. I've been enjoying going for years as part of that committee. These are relationships that go back 30 years, believe it or not. It's a great relationship. They are, of course, celebrating their fall festival with the parade on Sunday. So we will be enjoying that. Earlier today, I touched on it briefly. I was with WCI. I want to say thank you to Mr. Hall and his civics class. I really enjoy those engagements with, especially that age, that some of their questions are fantastic. You always get the truth out of them. They've got great questions, and I enjoy that. In fact, so council's aware, I've invited them to come at our next meeting, since it's a 1:30 meeting and civics works around that time. It was a 1:15 class today, so they're going to hopefully come and enjoy part of council meeting. They can't stay the entire thing. I said that was more than okay, and they'll check it out. So thank them again to WCI, and heading to CAS next is where I was going with that. Today was also the 120th celebration for Execulink. So congratulations to Execulink. 120 years in business in and around the area is fantastic. And it was a great turnout this afternoon. Wanted to touch on the Youth Advisory Committee as well. Please get applications in. It's fantastic. We've had a great uptake of applicants. I'd love to see even more. Again, we talked about that today in class. And wanted to wish everybody a happy Halloween. Be safe. Be cautious. It is a Thursday this year, so be cautious when you're going out. It's always dusk. Watch the little ones running around. So when you're driving out on the street, slow down. In fact, all the time, just slow down. Let's leave it at that. And with that, thanks, everybody. Looking for a motion to adjourn. Councillor Wismer Van Meer, second by Councillor Martin. All those in favor? We are adjourned. Thanks, everyone. Have a good night.